Talking with Scott Kellen from SixCentSports.com and SBR contributor John Ryan from JohnRyanSports.com, previewing Week 10 in the NFL here on the SBR TV NFL Experts Roundtable. We are now going to take a look at the Monday night game of a pretty intriguing line. It kind of feels like a stay off to me. It reminds me a little bit of last week's Bears-Eagles game. It's Minnesota at Green Bay. Green Bay is a 13-point home favorite, but that might be warranted. You know, Aaron Rodgers just rolling, looking absolutely awesome. Green Bay's had 3 home games. 2 of those games they won by more than 20 points. So, you know, they're certainly capable of this kind of a win, of this margin of a win. The Vikings look very vulnerable on defense. Their secondary is looking kind of vulnerable, and their entire defense is kind of banged up. But, you know, Christian Ponder's making them, you know, giving some life to their offense, and Adrian Peterson, of course, having a great year. Let's see what you guys have to say about it. John Ryan, what do you think about this line?
Well, I think you're right, Peter. I think it's one that you have to be really careful with. Mm-hmm. You know, it might be the type of game for those guys that like to play teasers, which I am not one of them. But, you know, you could tease Green Bay. But the one thing that's really intriguing to me this year in the NFL is the fact that we just mentioned New England, 32nd against the pass. The Green Bay Packers, which I think we all would agree right now is the best team in football, with the 31st worst passing defense. So with that said, you know, this game with both passing defenses ranked 30th by Minnesota, 31st against Green Bay could turn into a barn burner of a type of game. So it's a tough game to call, but there are things that make me lean towards Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, Scott Kellen, what's your read on these lines, if any?
I like Minnesota in the game, actually. I had them a couple weeks ago when they were at home against Green Bay, catching a whole bunch of points. They obviously jumped out to a lead in that game, I think, then fell back down by 17 or something. It looked like they weren't going to cover, and then managed to squeak back under the number. I make the line 8 in this game, which seems actually kind of short, but obviously there's clear value based on that. And Minnesota qualifies in a couple really, really good fundamental rushing situations for me, as well as Green Bay qualifies in a negative rushing situation, which just basically says they don't rush the ball very well, they don't stop the rush very well, they're lane points, it's usually not a good scenario. So the Vikings qualify in some pretty good situations. There's value there. Obviously, you can't really look, you know, how these two teams have played here in the last few years because it's a completely different Viking team with Favre and the other quarterbacks that they've had. But Minnesota's played here pretty competitively over the years, and they've had a week off, so they're going to be coming off a bye. Like John said, the Packers, you know, I bleed green and gold, but that defense is not stopping anybody. And to a degree, we've seen this multiple times this year. At Minnesota, they got up by 17, let them back in. They won by 6. At Carolina, they dropped down early, took the lead back, were covering, gave it back. Same thing with San Diego last week. Now, they managed to cover because they were laying less than a touchdown, but I don't think they really care so much on defense from time to time because they know they can score, and you know, they could be up by 20 points the whole game and give up a backdoor touchdown and not cover. So I think the play is Minnesota or nothing, and I actually feel pretty good about the Vikings in this game.
Really?